Morning, everybody. Nice to see the people that I haven't seen for a while here, and some people I've never seen. I'm going to talk for a little while. My name is Justin. If you we haven't crossed paths. Can you hear me back there? Okay. I'm going to talk for a while, and then if you have anything to say, I'll give you a chance to make any comments or ask any questions you want to ask, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. I do have a couple of words of advice because I've been listening to me for a long time and I get some idea about the ups and downs of it. So if I can give you some advice about how to listen to me from lessons I've learned in listening to me, then that might be useful to you. One of my favorite movies is called The Valley. And it's a movie about a group of people, uh, including some city people and a little kid who traveled overland in New Guinea in street clothes. Obviously not a possible, carrying a steamer trunk. Obviously, anybody who's done some hard traveling, backpacking in that way, knows that that would not be possible to go through the jungles of New Guinea in the way I just described. But it's a wonderful movie, and I've learned so much from that movie. But think of it, if I would have seen that, and my comment about that movie would be, as it was going on and I was watching, no, that's not possible. They couldn't do that. Oh, I see their shoes. The kid could never lift that thing. I would never be able to partake in whatever benefit there was in that movie. So I'd have to do what you might call cut them a little slack, a little creative flexibility. So I'd like you to give that to me if you could. It would be to your benefit. So if I say something that contradicts something that you know, or you see an exception, because when things are presented in words, there are always exceptions. There are no absolute word truths. It's all vocabulary. It's all words that you've heard before, maybe put together in a different way. But so easy to find an exception. But if you find an exception, you might preclude learning something. So you might try as an experiment to take what you can and leave the rest, and forget about the exceptions and the contradictions, because there may be a few. Okay? Okay? Okay. So I just returned from a couple of weeks ago from Eastern Europe, and I'm not going to talk about Eastern Europe or the politics there or politics here. I'm not going to talk about that, but I do want to talk about something that I experienced coming back from there, because I have traveled a lot and I've flown a lot. And I try to avoid really long flights. It seems there is a price that my body pays for really long flights. So I try to outsmart the gods of jet lag. And I broke up this return trip by going from far Eastern Europe, the border of Romania and Ukraine, to Western Europe, to uh, Portugal, and then to New York, and each place spending a couple of days, and then to here. It didn't work. Uh, I definitely my sleep was thrown off for some time, but it was interesting because I had never really reflected so much on the function of sleep, the need for sleep, the addiction to sleep, everything to do with sleep that one contends with when it's not so available, or when you're going to sleep at 3 and waking up at 5 a.m. and like that. So what I got to really dwell on was what hard work it is to sleep. You have to deal with the light in the room, the time of day, the noise that's there, which for some people, they go from the city to the country, they can't sleep in the quiet. Other people go from the country to the city, they can't sleep with the sirens going on. There's the temperature in the room. There's what do you do with your arm if you sleep on your side? There, as your age starts to advance, you got the peeing issue. This is hard work. And then if you happen to be in the position where you're sharing the situation with somebody else, everything is geometrically multiplied. So sleep is really, it's an endeavor. And I probably, if I threw it out to you to add more things, you could probably add more things to the undertaking of sleep. And basically, there's the mattress and the pillow and the blankets and the weight of the blankets and the composition of the blankets and the roughness of the pillow, which is something if you travel, you're contending with all the time. So this is interesting because we have we think we go to sleep to get, in a way, relief from the day. Now I know there's also the body has a physical need to sleep. All mammals sleep, and that's the story. But the amount and the importance of sleep to us and what we actually seek in it is relief from the ardors of the day, of the stress of the day, of the noise and the commotion and the actions of the day, of the decision, oh, I didn't even add dreaming, another whole thing you have to deal with in sleep. Everything that happens in the day, the millions of decisions that you have to make, the relief from that, and then you sleep. But it's a full-time job to get a good night's sleep for all the reasons that I described. So think of what we're doing here. Think of what's happening. Think of how stressful days must be if we seek a full-time job of sleep for our relief. Now that's a little hard to grasp, but tonight you might get a better picture of what I'm talking about than talking about in words and theory. We must be under a lot of stress during the day. We must be under a lot of pressure during the day. Pressures we don't even know about because we're seeking this multifaceted, multi-effort endeavor called sleep, undertaking called sleep, to get relief from the day. So the day must be more. And I believe that it is. And I want to present that it is. That our lives are very stressful. And so much of our effort goes into relieving that stress. That is, in a way, our job. we have difficulty and we effort to relieve ourselves of that difficulty. We go down and we have to struggle to get back up. And then we go down and we have to struggle to get back up. We may only go down a little, but still we have to struggle to get back up. And there are people that have what you might call esoteric aims, or finer aims, or spiritual aims. How in the world could there be energy really for that in actuality if we're involved in such a cycle? So what I've presented to people is some of the elements that I think have to be addressed in order for our lives not to be overwhelmed by this particular cycle of stress and relief, stress and relief, stress and relief, difficulty and relief. So I've presented a few. I want to tell you about a couple of them. You know the difference between an axiom and a hypothesis? A hypothesis is a theory. It's a proposal. This is a maybe. This is a hypothesis. This is a possibility. An axiom is something that has been proven to the degree that it makes sense. It is now common knowledge. We can proceed once we have established that a hypothesis becomes an axiom because of our exploration, examination, experimentation, etc. So I'm presenting these things, and I present these things to people as these are hypotheses. Hypotheses. This isn't the way it is. This is a possibility. This is a good possibility, or I wouldn't present it. But I will present a way also for you to establish, prove for yourself whether this is the case, whether this is axiomatic. Through your efforts, not my proclamation, you will prove that it is or it isn't. Through your own experimentation and exploration with tools that I can give you. And I have. So I want to talk about a couple here. And as I said, here it comes, that when I present these two, there are exceptions. We probably claim a few too many of exceptions because we like to be the exception. But roll with me a little bit because I'm going to present them only as hypotheses, not as something that you should believe. And when you walk out of here, when you leave, you can believe anything you like. This is not a programming session, although some of that music seemed a little bit hypnotic at first. The first one is that negative emotions, bad feelings, the first hypothesis, negative emotions, bad feelings are always a sign of discord, of disharmony, of something not right within you. Not within them, within you. Always. That negative emotions, your bad feelings, any bad feelings that you have, any bad feelings that you have, reflect something in you that's in discord, that's in disharmony, that's not healthy as it could be. The same as a physical pain indicates there's something that's not working right. An emotional pain, a negative emotion, indicates that something is not working right in you, not in them, not in it, not in the world, not in any of the things that took place in this last 2 weeks for some of you. That's one of the hypotheses, and happens to be, this is important, if it happens to be that through your efforts of exploring that hypothesis, it becomes an axiom, you have a certain benefit. And that benefit is that you know where to start in the process of leaving some of this discord behind. Because you have direct indications from these negative emotions of where that discord is and in what area, whether it's in your jealousy or in your anger or in your self-pity or whatever you have, microcosmic or macrocosmic, that you have a gift. You know the pain. You know where to start. One of the most difficult physical ailments is I just don't feel well. And somebody says, well, where? And I just don't feel well. I'm begging for a pain so I know what's going on here because it's just I don't feel well. But if you actually can use your negative emotions, the specifics, the instances, the manifestation, to trace back to the discord in you, it might be possible to leave those things behind. So although I'm presenting this as a hypothesis, if it happened to be that through the use of tools you could verify this, you would have something worthwhile. Certainly better than sweeping them under the rug, or expressing them or not expressing them, or all the different ideas, or analyzing them, or psychoanalyzing them. You might have an asset. That's the first one. The second one, the second hypothesis of numerous ones that I present to people, along with tools for them to axiomatize them or not, is that no one can do anything to you. No one can do anything to you. No words can hurt you. No actions can hurt you. Certainly if somebody hits you over the head, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about physical assault. I'm talking about emotional assault. I'm talking about verbal assault. I'm talking about people disrespecting you, disliking you, insulting you. Whatever happens, no one or nothing, the weather can't do anything to you. It can't depress you. The noise of the neighbors can't do anything to you. It can't annoy you. It can't make you angry. Nothing can do anything to you. That's a hypothesis. 100%. And I can present, and I have presented tools for people to verify this themselves. First, maybe theoretically, because it's a pretty long haul to get to 100% with that. Because people can be a major pain in the ass. But as a pain in the ass they are, and as you are, and as I am, it can't do anything to you. Because the strings are in you. And if they're not plucked, and only you can pluck them, can you feel that something is being done to you? Now, it's not like there are not impressions of all kinds, but the strings are in you. If you learn this, and this hypothesis becomes an axiom for you, you can then discover some reality of what's going on, free from blame, free from excuses, free from self-pity because of circumstances. What a greased wheel that is. What a smooth trajectory could be if you know what to work on. Not them, you. Think of the accelerated process it would be if this work, whatever was necessary to go from coarse to fine, and finer and finer and finer, only uh, related to your purification, not theirs, not its. Certainly it would be better if the atmosphere were clearer. Certainly it would be better if. But your peace has to do with you. All the strings are in you. So I've presented these two hypotheses. I've presented numerous others, and I've presented tools to explore them. And for some people here, those ideas have become axiomatic, and people are in the process of accelerating toward actually being to live those axioms rather than just to know them theoretically. And what I've presented as a necessary test tube, as a necessary laboratory for this, is very relevant. Because it may be the stumbling block, not these two ideas or any of the other ideas, but this environment that I presented as necessary might be the stumbling block for people. So I want to talk a little bit about this environment, this laboratory that I presented and I consider as necessary. A few years ago, uh, I was on a ship, a big ship. To give you some idea, the ship was 90,000 tons, big metal ship, and the ship had the intention of going around uh, Cape Horn, the bottom of South America, you know, down the coast of Argentina, up the coast of Chile. And the ship got to within maybe 2 miles of the end of the bottom, Cape Horn. And the waves were 60 feet high, and the wind was like 75 miles an hour. It was a huge boat, so it was moving plenty, but the captain decided, no, we're not going to do this. It's too dangerous. So it tucked in and rode out the storm for a while and then went through this thing called the Beagle Channel. The Beagle Channel is the most southern channel that goes across just before the end of the tip of South America. There's the Straits of Magellan, which is a little further north, and then there's the Beagle Channel. It's called the Beagle Channel because the dogs, beagles, used to swim in it. It's, it's called the Beagle Channel because the ship, Darwin's ship, the ship Darwin was on, was called the Beagle, and it was 250 tons. It was an English sailing ship, 250 tons versus 90,000 tons. And it was able to go around South America through this channel. It also couldn't go around the tip, but it went through the Beagle Channel. This ship that Darwin was on when he was in his 20s, in the early 1800s. And the history of ships discovering that they had to, in order to go from here to there, from Atlantic to Pacific to Asia, that they had to go around South America because there was no Panama Canal at the time. They, what did they need to do? In these sailing ships that weighed a few hundred tons, uh, what they had to do is they had to have a captain that knew exactly what the fuck to do. Because 1 out of 3 ships making that turn didn't make it. They either had to turn back or they went down. 1 out of 3 ships. Can you imagine? That's a lot of sacrifice. And even after they knew that that's what was happening, they got better captains because they knew it was a gamble. They needed someone that knew what could happen. They knew the downsides, the upsides, the subtleties, like that. But these ships were not one person operating. So it couldn't be just a captain. It had to be a crew, and that crew had to cooperate. They had to be one-pointed. They had to be able to operate spontaneously because shit happens. So to call it a team sport would be an underestimation. It was a mega team sport, more so than any of the things we consider team sports. That it had to have a leader. It couldn't be democracy. It couldn't be, what is that term, consensus. Imagine consensus operating that ship. I wouldn't want to be on that ship and have my vote heard. And I have done a little sailing, but I wouldn't want to. I would want to, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'm saying this because the third element, the laboratory for exploration of this climb from coarse to fine, which is so uphill in this world. And think of it. Think of coarse to fine. Where are things going? Are things going without in the world from coarse to fine? I don't think so. I don't think anyone would say who has observed the world going from coarse to fine in some streamlined way or in any but a very isolated circumstance way. It's a climb. It's going around the Cape Horn in a fucking rowboat. It takes a team. It takes a lab. It takes a captain. It takes some shit. Whatever you think, because you have accomplished stuff by yourself. Absolutely. I have, you have, we all have. But there's some things that it doesn't go that way. It doesn't go that way for sailing around the Cape Horn. It doesn't go that way from the climb from coarse to fine. What you might call some kind of a spiritual evolution, some kind of a consciousness evolution, takes a lot. And I want you to understand that my concept, well, let me tell you this. A few days ago, one of the people here that I've known for a long time is corresponding, emailing with somebody in Australia. Maybe they're even on the Zoom call. I don't know. It would be 3 in the morning. If you are, you know what I mean about sleep. They were on they had a conversation, and it went back and forth, like a half a dozen times. Very beautiful interaction between people getting to know each other over email, which is not easy. It's certainly limited, but they were both trying. And read some of the emails, and they were both trying. It was beautiful. But the person that I personally knew, because I didn't know the person in Australia at all, was presenting some of these ideas I'm talking about and talking about their experience of some of these ideas and more ideas of going from coarse to fine. And at some point, this person wrote back, well, I'm fascinated by your ideas, but sometimes I would like to hear your spiritual ideas. And I want to say something about that because this concept of spiritual is extraordinarily compartmentalizing, destructive, separating, and bogus. We are human beings. We are coarse human beings. We are fine human beings. We are finer human beings. We manifest coarse vibrations. We manifest finer vibrations. We can manifest very, very, very fine vibrations. We cannot manifest the finest vibration because we are separated entities. But we certainly can manifest finer and finer vibrations, and how fine the vibration is really in question. It's a possibility. And we could label the finest vibration spiritual, and we could name the coarsest vibration whatever we would name it, or whoever we would. But there's a continuum there, and the continuum doesn't see itself as compartments. It doesn't see it. It sees itself as coarse and fine, coarser and finer, but it doesn't see itself as this is a group for A, this is a group for B, this is a group for C. Very fine vibrations are manifest by people when there are natural disasters. Or some of us just came back from the border of Romania and Ukraine and tried to do some social work, some helping of some orphans of the Ukrainian war there. And we met some people there that were incredibly selfless and helpful in their endeavors. Very fine vibration. And those people were also capable of the other. It wasn't they were spiritual, they were not spiritual. It was all like part of the human experience, the human possibility. So I teach and pursue and encourage the journey from coarse to fine, and we don't have to call it anything because people know in themselves anger is coarse, compassion is finer, selflessness is finer than selfishness, and there may be even finer than selflessness. The separated I is coarser than the encompassing I. The encompassing I is finer. It may not even be able to could be called an I. And I'm saying this because the compartmentalization of ideas is you're doing this and you're doing this and you're in this group and you're in that group and concepts like that are not helpful. They might be helpful in team sports like football and basketball and soccer or whatever. That separation of my team against your team. But there are no teams here. There's the human race. And if you want to be part of the quest for being the manifestation of a finer vibration, at a coarser vibration, then that's beautiful. And if you in your life have that gift, that calls out to you, and it is a gift. It's a gift that you can, let's say, even take advantage of, because there are things you don't have to worry about. There are things you don't have to trouble about. I'll give you an example. If you knew a person that inherited a huge amount of money, they were in the percentage, very small percentage of the population in their financial well-being because of inheritance, not because of any great work they did. Inheritance. They got a boon. They got a blessing. Somebody left them a fortune. How would you look at them if then they spent their life making more money? What a waste. They've been given the gift. They don't have to do that. What else? What can you do once you get there? Maybe you could find ways to give it away. Maybe you could buy an island, go live there, and whatever you have to do, you've been given a gift. You've been given a buy. You know what a buy is? You don't have to you don't have to compete in that round. You get to go through that round to the next round. In sports, that's what a buy is. You've been given a buy. You've been given a pass through. And if you're called on, if there's a calling in you to go from coarse to fine, then you've been given a buy. You've been given a pass through. So if you spend your time worrying about what other people worry about for yourself, I'm not talking about for the world, you're not recognizing that you've been given a buy. It's granted by your good fortune and by nobody knows why, the possibility of going for what's finer than that, what's beyond that. So anytime you get bogged down in the ordinary struggles for yourself, not for other people, for yourself, you get bogged down, you get depressed from the ordinary things that people who haven't been given that gift are involved in, then you're not recognizing that you are a benefactor. You inherited something. I don't know where you inherited from. It's a mystery. But you have it. And the percentage of people that actually have inherited that have been bitten by that bee, that have that bug, that have that calling in them, is much smaller than the people who have inherited the hundreds of millions, the millions. Very select bunch of people that have really inherited that drive from coarse to fine. Not for what people will think, or not to be liked, or not to be, to fit in, or not to be able to say whatever, but really have it. That's a blessing that you shouldn't turn away from if you have it. So today I've talked about, so far, the the situation with sleep, with ordinary in the night sleeping, and what a challenge that is to get a good night's sleep. but not as much of a challenge as it is to go through a day without stress, without growing stress. So we need this night relief. Then I talked about the way I'm addressing that situation and the way other people, some other people here in this room, are addressing this situation because of our working together with those two concepts of, and others, but those two, of recognizing negative emotions reflect discord in us and using that precision to see what the discord is that it would be manifest as a negative emotion. And also the hypothesis that any difficulty that we have of any kind is our own doing. It may have, there may be all kinds of shit happening out there. If we take it in and suffer from it, not for compassion, but we suffer from it, then it's the chords in us that are being plucked. And the laboratory I'm presenting as needed. You see that movie, Master and Commander, Russell Crowe? Well, I'm playing Russell Crowe in that movie. Get over it. He's gotten very overweight in the last years. Because a team needs to work together to climb this really very, very and finally the blessing of being interested in the subject to a point that you would actually do something with it. Not that it would become another subject in the subject you're interested in, of which you see something or nothing, but that you actually want to pursue going from coarse to fine. So I do want people to get a chance to ask questions or make comments if they like. I think the people who are on Zoom can ask questions, but they would have to type them into the chat, and somebody here will read them, and maybe I can address them or not. And so we can take a few minutes to do that. If people don't have questions or comments, we don't have to do that. And we'll see where that goes. Anybody want to say anything or ask anything at all? Okay. He's asking, if you didn't hear, he's asking, what's the evidence that I have that it's so few people that are actually pursuing coarse to fine? Well, one thing I know is that so much of effort that people make is another way to get relief. It could be labeled spiritual effort, it could be labeled coarse to fine, it could be labeled something, but on further examination, on my further examination, on impartial examination, that quest, that New Age quest, is not what it appears to be. It's another way to be stronger, another way to withstand the pressures of life, not a way to something. I know it. I know it for sure. I have personal evidence in that the way it's gone in the last 40 years of me doing this, 40, years in me doing this, for 30 years in me having these talks, of having these kind of groups, of exploring tools and ways to see how challenging and difficult and steep it is to really climb. Not to imagine climbing, but to really climb. I have no question about that. It's much more, mm, it's much rarer than one would think. I don't know, and this to you, you may have a very different picture of things, but whatever your picture of things, you're entitled to have it. But I'm saying as someone who has a pretty fucking big view that, and has worked on that view and purified that view and moved away from self anything that would make me feel better of a view. Uh, that's the conclusion I've come up with. But, you know, the awkwardness with which I'm answering this question is because I don't know how to put out the evidence that I have because it's been my life. Anybody else? Go ahead. If you're asking me how would one know or how would I know? One know for themselves? One would know for themselves 50% of the time they'd be accurate, 50% of the time they would be not accurate. Without, you know how it goes even with people have really limited perspective. I mean, you watch a movie on TV, you see things in that movie, you can conjecture what's going on that the people in that movie, the characters in that story, couldn't conjecture. You have a perspective because you're not attached. It's a movie. You have an imagination. If you were involved in that thing, you couldn't have those attributes. So sometimes a stranger on the street could see you clearer than you could see yourself. And and certainly somebody who wasn't a stranger, who had more views of you, would be able to see you clearer than you would see yourself. Not all the time, but in those moments that distortion happens, and distortion happens. Anybody who knows me knows that distortion happens because you can be sure that you see things clearly, but you spend a little time with somebody who sees it a little clearer than you, you're a little bit receptive to that you might be incorrect. They're not trying to manipulate you or get your love or your money or your property or your compliments or you establish that they don't have an agenda in relation to you, but for some reason they can see you, then you learn that, wow, I really thought I knew myself in this moment. That's why I say a team, I don't know, maybe Ramana Maharshi did it without a team. Maybe he's full of shit. I just don't know, and I don't care. I have never met anybody, myself certainly included, who comes close, comes close to being able to do this thing called 10 times the complexity of sailing around uh, Cape Horn by themselves. So the whole story is I don't like teachers, I don't like groups, I don't like teachers, I don't like groups. Well, I don't like teachers and I don't like groups either. Because because teachers teachers cause people to follow them. I fight every day, in every way I possibly can, in every word I utter, to try to avoid that sickness which I know is inherent in teachers and groups. I know it's there. I know it's lurking around every fucking corner. And no matter what I do, I'm going to run into somebody who's going to comb their hair back and part it down the fucking middle. because they think that's going to get them free. So I know groups are not good. Teachers are not good. But if they're if it can't be done without them, let's make it the best we can make it. And I'm trying to make it the best I can make it in a really difficult uphill situation where part of humans are looking to give me something to follow or being completely, what is the term, dis, disappointed with the people that they have tried to follow. Anybody else? Okay.
How do you accelerate?
She's asking, if you didn't hear back there, how do you accelerate the process of understanding that the strings are plucked in you? They're not out there, they're in you. The, the stimulus is out there. Somebody shouts at you, somebody insults you. The two possibilities are that you feel compassion for their pain, because if they're insulting you, if they're driving fast and they're mad at you and they cut you off and like that, they're having a bad day. Now, if they cause you to have an accident, that's one thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being offended because of their pain. It's not really required. The potential to feel, wow, this person is going through some stuff. Or you're on the line at the supermarket and somebody's complaining and complaining and complaining. They're standing right behind you, and you're getting annoyed with them. It's not necessary to get annoyed with them. The string in you could get of compassion to get plucked, or anger to get plucked. The string is in you. Now, the more you explore that with the tools that I've given you personally, so that you can make that separation, so you can explore that situation, see the, the circumstances that prove to be that the string was in you, and keep doing it and keep doing it, and not wait for crises, because people are explorers of the macrocosm. Everybody wants to talk about their latest crisis, but negative emotions happen when you reach out and you touch this and you knock it over, or you tip it and it's in danger of being knocked over, or you're looking for your book and it isn't where you put it. Life is made up of multiple experiences of that kind that can be explored. They are negative emotions. They are microcosmic. They are minimal, but they are a little bit of discord, annoyance with another person, blame of another person for your feelings. Even if it's a little, why did they slam the door? Somebody leaves early and you feel, oh, disrespectful. Why'd they leave early? Slam the door like that. You could also feel their situation. They came in, they sat over there in that end of the room. They wanted to leave the whole time. finally, finally there was a pause. They walked out there. They know everybody's thinking they're best, like that. You could think, well, that must have been rough. Or you could get annoyed. Over and over and over again, little things, till, as I've said before, there's a tire. If there's a hole in that tire, the, the millions of square millimeters in that tire, one little puncture and the air goes out. So you got to do it till you know that it's in you. It's in you. Peace is within you. Discord is within you. Anybody else? Okay. If everybody heard, somebody on Zoom is asking the question, what do I think about the AA 12-step program? I think that anything anybody does to go from coarse to fine, and they're certainly doing that, is admirable, remarkable, especially somebody who is sincerely doing that. Now, the drive for doing that is very clear to those people. You don't go to AA because, let's go to AA. You go because you hit a pretty low point, sometimes a very low point, and that stimulus causes you to want something. Certainly you want some relief from the pain of having some solo, but once you have the relief from that pain, do you and you get a level of fineness in relation to the coarseness, do you still then want to go to a level? Do you still then want to go from a level of fine to finer? And then from fine to finer? Maybe yes, maybe no. How fine a level you can go in with the support system and the tools of the 12-step program, I'm not commenting on, because I wouldn't criticize anybody that's doing anything to go from coarse to fine, especially the people in those groups, which are probably a small number of all the people that get together that are sincerely putting their actions where their ideas go. Anybody else? Oh, okay, I hear you. I hear you. Very, uh, it's something that's very important for me to address because uh, TV, television, has had an incredible, before computers certainly, but television had an incredible effect on emerging third world countries, countries in poverty with very limited possibilities. Incredible because so many people in so many villages got to see possibilities of lifestyle that they had no idea existed. They didn't know. They thought they may have thought, especially in some very primitive places, and there were a lot of them, and I've traveled to a lot of them. People thought that getting one good meal a day, I mean, that's paradise, especially if you didn't get one good meal a day. But those people started to be subjected to pictures and even moving pictures of people around the world that were uh, having 3 meals a day and having cars and not having to carry huge weights on their back, having wheelbarrows and electronic things and like that. And people started to want those things. How could you not want those things if your life is carrying? We saw some pictures the other day some people who are going to India and or went to India and are going to of the women in India carrying bricks on their head to a construction site, carrying a load of bricks, dumping them off, going back and getting another load of bricks. Now, at some point, those people get to see somebody who gets to move their bricks in a mechanized way and say, well, let's all pool our money and get one of those things. But before that, they didn't know that's the way you do your bricks. So the picture of what's possible has to expand for any question, because if you think uh, everybody in this room probably is, we don't miss meals, or if we do, we miss them because they're dieting. We don't. There's troubles we don't have. You know, the people in the Middle East and the people in Ukraine, they're getting they're getting bombs dropped on their head. You know, they don't, we don't have that. We don't have that. So we have a situation we think this is pretty good, and it is pretty good, but it's just a little bit of what's possible. The human experience is so far beyond what you know, so far beyond what you know, that I can't tell you about it. I can just tell you a way to get a little more. And if you get a little more 3 times, you might get the idea that there's even more and a little more and a little more and a little more. And maybe you'll never stop wanting to get a little more or be a little less. Because the possibility of, of connection, actual connection, not theoretical connection, not hypothetical connection, not pretend connection, not dogmatic connection. but actual connection to the energy that sustains everything and sustains us and is behind our breath, is not our breath, but is giving us breath, is tangibly experienceable by a human being. And the company of that experience creates a state of being where nothing else is needed. Nothing. Nothing. Everything you've ever done for comfort, and I don't mean comfort in a negative way, for support, for security, for assurance, comes in one package. It comes in a lot of little packages in life, but it comes in one package with the experience of what's behind the breath, of some internal sound and light and vibration that actually comes to us. Now, it doesn't come to us in our coarser form, but its tail end comes to us. Its great, great, great grandchild comes to us. And if we can get to a point and go from coarse to fine to a degree, it's possible to be able to learn to follow that sound and light and vibration within inside us and have that experience of which there is nothing else like. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I found myself interested in how I see America, basically. And I not really necessary or.
I think it's an important question because we are in the position of receiving impressions nonstop. We're, we're in the process, always in the process of receiving input of some kind nonstop. And to learn the harmonious way to absorb those impressions and input is precious, precious, because knowing the past, knowing what's happened before is critical. Knowing not to have it cause us to imitate is also critical. So there are two ways we can learn from what's taken place and the input we get in the present, in the past, to know history, to know what's gone on, to know what's going on, but to learn that it's not that the harmonious way to absorb that is to have some impartiality within us, to have some organ within us that's able to learn from those things, not to mimic those things, not to repeat those things as though we know them, or repeat them as it was, but to relearn them. And that has to do with history, that has to do with science, that has to do with spirituality. So anybody who quotes anybody from the past, I don't care if it's Jesus, if it's whoever, if it's Buddha, if it's Sai Baba, whoever it is, and they're quoting it without it having gone through their process and become them. So really they're quoting themselves with another word, and they verify that quote for themselves, and they're saying it. It's them saying it. They may be saying it for credibility. They're giving it to somebody else. But I don't quote anybody. I quote me because I have absorbed those impressions. And the ones that have become me, I say, this is my idea. I'm not, this isn't a this group or a that group or any kind of group. This is a group of verification. And so if you get some input that say plastic utensils that are painted black are bad for you, and you pass that on, you're fucked. If you pass it on after you did the experiment to know that that's the case, then there's some value to what you're transmitting. So everything that I transmit, I have verified. I don't pass on anything. I'm not I'm not the voice of anything that's happened in the past. But I have learned myriads from the past. So how do we do that? How do we learn to learn from from the past and the present without being transmitters of something without having verified them for ourselves? That's the question. That's the challenge. To actually believe that somebody could have done or does something that I'm describing is unbelievable because everybody is repeating something. And especially with the jargon, the terminology. You pick up a new kind of a word that you hear somewhere and you repeat it like it means something. But all it is it's a new word. Anybody else? Go ahead. Uh, if they're asking if you have less negative emotions, is that a sign you're going from coarse to fine? Is it you feel better? Really, it's not so much the negative emotions that are the problem. It's the attachment to them that's the problem. I mean, clouds come over, clouds come over. Personal preference is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with personal preference. Individuality is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with individuality. It's not like individuality is a problem. It's attachment to that individuality that's a problem. It's attachment to those negative emotions. It's going down with them. And I don't mean going down with them. I'm not talking about crisis. I'm talking about going down with them at all. It doesn't have to be that. You recognize something isn't to your preference. You're on the road and somebody gives you the finger. What? Oh, I wish they'd done that. No, that's not, but where you go with that is the problem. So personal preference is something that I would never talk against. We're all unique experiments on the part of the creator. That uniqueness is something of beauty. Personal preference is fine. Attachment to it, to a point that we want to defend it, we want to fight for it, we want to kill each other for it, we want to compete with each other for it. Okay, a couple more and then we'll be done. Go ahead again. They're certainly connected. Well, anytime you come to a question of course to fine, there are going to be connections there. It doesn't really, even physical restlessness, being able to, people who try to meditate, they find the first thing they discover is that the body has a mind. And it said, no way I'm going to let you sit there. And whoever knew, because you're moving around, not you personally, but we're moving around, and anytime we go here, go there, do this, do that, reach for this, and that, stand up, sit down, and we obey. So we never know, but then we try to meditate, disobey, we discover that there's something going on there, and whoever even it was there, that restlessness is connected to those negative emotions, is connected to that blame. It's all connected. Discord is a very diabolical, comprehensive package. The only way that I know to address it is to break it down into its components. I don't know that there's another way to address difficulty as a whole. So I have broken it down. People historically have done that too. And I've redone it in the ways that I think are most useful because I know historically people have broken it down to the exploration of dreams. Now, I happen to know that exploring dreams is a 100% waste of time. Absolute waste of time. There are so many things you can do. The exploration of dreams, which people in great regard have pursued. And you can understand things from them, but you can be so misled to them. And I'll tell you why. Uh, when I went to college in West Virginia for a while, and there's, I was a New York City person. I didn't really like being in such a rural place. There was nothing to do, so I got a radio, and I would tune my radio. And West Virginia is kind of in the middle of the country, and at that time, people were starting to get more and more watts per channel, the with power to their stations. So I could pick up like hundreds of stations. So I could feel like I'm in St. Louis, I'm in Chicago, I'm back in, I could do that. But it was just like a little turn, and there were two stations. Well, dreams are like that. Dreams are electricity that's moving, and you tap into it. Is it your dream? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So you're going to spend time analyzing a dream that you can't be sure it's yours. You may have just tuned a little there and you're picking up somebody else's dream. And I'm not saying making this up. I mean, there are, everybody knows that you can't say, that's my dream, that's my dream. You can, I don't want to get too far into this. It's too specific and you may think I'm a whack job. I don't want you to think that I'm an anti-dream. But there are efficient ways to break down this this discord, and I've tried to eliminate the less efficient ones from the more efficient ones, and that's what this system is about. Anybody else? I appreciate that question. Yeah, go ahead. Speak up a little louder, okay?
Yeah, just to make a practical plan. Let's say there's one day, and of course throughout the day, there can be enough to make it negativity. Pick one and then say, oh, you just think about it. Well,
Hey, listen, I'm not suggesting anybody do anything. There are a few people in this room that I'd make these suggestions for, and those suggestions are hypotheses, and how they do it and what they do with it is up to them. You know, it's your life, it's your connection to your creator. I'm not in the middle of it. You weren't created by way of me. You're that extension of that pure and perfect energy. It descended through all the fineness and made a body and made a mind and made an emotion, and that's you and that's me. Okay, so I'm not suggesting. What I'm doing is I'm putting forth a package of things the way I see that course defined can happen. And it requires something. It requires sometimes more. It doesn't require like sacrifice. First of all, it doesn't cost any money. No money. Zero money. Money and this quest, I don't know how they came together, but it's like, you know, you sit down. I'm not going to go, it's too gross. It's just, they don't go together. They shouldn't have gone together. They shouldn't go together. They don't go together. I haven't brought them together and they don't belong together. So, but what does go together is priority. It's about priority. If you can make it your priority, not your priority over your family or over your job, but your priority over the shtick that you do to fill up the time. If you can do that, your pickleball, your cucumber ball, your watermelon ball, whatever you do for a ball, if you could find a way to prioritize a little at a time, that's the pain. That's what it takes. And not prioritize to go to meetings and not prioritize to be with other people. To prioritize using a method that you suspect might be useful, that you agree to take on, or several methods, and you try them. They're not methods that are to program you or infiltrate you or anything, but they will indicate something to you. And if that's the story. So I'm not recommending anything that these people should do. That there are a few people here that are doing what they see fit to do. Some of them are by my recommendation. Some of them are not. I don't take a hit if you do. I don't take a hit if you don't. It's really up to you. You don't have to please me. I don't need to be pleased. I'm beyond having to be pleased. I don't need to be complimented. I don't need to be loved. I don't need those things. So you can do it the way you want to do it. And you can tell me what you're doing and what you're not doing, and I'm okay with it. So if you get to that place, you'll get the benefit or the lack of benefit that that you discover. It's your discovery. It's not my discovery. People have a much distorted concept of somebody in my position, that I have the power. I have no authority whatsoever. I can't make anybody do anything. Nor would I want to make anybody do anything. Nor am I a boss of anything. I can indicate a possibility. I can talk about my own experience. I can talk about what I know. You can listen. You can not listen. However, you have the power. You can do it or not do it. You're the authority. You're the boss. So to say, I don't like teachers. You must have some concept. I don't fit into that concept. Maybe there are people that do that and manipulate people and cause themselves to get benefits of whatever kind. I don't need your benefit, and I'm not in that ballgame. So whatever concept that you may have of somebody in my position, I'm not in that position. If you need help, I can be that help. If you don't need that help, I won't be that help. I can watch football with almost anybody. If you don't throw chairs around, if your team loses, I can watch football with you, and I'm going to later today. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, last one.
It's not very well formulated.
Make it good. It's the last one we're going to do.
I want to ask about just the dynamic of like avoidance um, and also trying to like as much as you're not looking for approval, many of us have lived our whole lives trying to do everything for approval, and so it's easy to reach to like see something that is magnetizing or attractive and want to like get all the approval or try to do it right or all that stuff. And then also there's like the dynamic of avoiding something that you're magnetized towards, avoiding looking bad, avoiding whatever. So it's like this push me pull you, and I guess I'm looking for some pointers to like somewhere in between that that's not either of those things.
Yeah, I understand. Well, if you're around people that are faking it, it's tough to let down because they're faking. Say I'm not that familiar with the office workplace. A little bit because I've seen videos. I've seen some of those movies and things like that, so I know how it goes. But everybody is kind of pretending, whatever they're pretending, to get by, to get on, to excel, to make impressions, to whatever people do in that situation. And if somebody's going to come in there and they just want to let it all hang out, it's impossible. It's impossible because the environment supports pretending. Now, if you can get into an environment that doesn't support pretending, and then it's easy. Somebody sitting next to you says something that's honest about themselves, that's vulnerable about themselves. I'm not talking about confessing about some great crime, but some little thing that's, wow, that's interesting. They were okay, they smiled, everybody laughed, and moved on. It's much easier to be honest in an honest circumstance than it is to be honest in a dishonest circumstance. And I don't mean dishonest in a lying circumstance, but human human social interactions are basically dishonest. It's like what the Woody Allen movie when he's talking one thing and there's a little circle above his head what he's thinking while he's talking the other thing. Everybody knows that that's the way it generally goes. And it's got to be because the person isn't going to be able to absorb your honesty because you don't have that agreement and like that. So if you can find a group of people that are relatively willing to be the microcosm, the vulnerability of like that, then you found something, and then it'll grow on you, and you'll take chances every once in a while, and it'll be okay. Okay. All right. I appreciate especially the people who tuned in on Zoom. I know it's challenging to do that. I hope the technology works okay. And whoever you are, I hope I see you again. We have these meetings regularly. I speak every once in a while, but not all the time. But I think it can be tremendously valuable if you want to hear more to see what people that I've known for a lot of years have to say and how they manifest it and how they, how they handle seeing themselves a little more as they are and got a little, in their view at least, from course to fine. And you're also certainly welcome to, however you got to be here, you have some connection to be here, to check that connection and come by. Frequently it's Sundays, but not always. Okay? Okay, thank you.